another minute or two, then we'll get started.
I saw Carl at the pool last night. We didn't have quorum, so we couldn't make any decisions. I was surprised to see him.
All right, so we can go ahead and get started. If Linda joins us, that'd be great. If not, according to our spreadsheet here, we're at quorum. So with our new weighted voting, please don't mind the cat that walks by here and there. There's two of them. And so real quick, here is our new ad hoc group for this upcoming year. When folks started rolling in, started putting attendance in. Fun fact, if Brett and I by ourselves showed up to the meeting, we would never be at quorum. And so given that two of our folks are from Holden, two from Rutland, we would always need one and or someone else. And then so one from each town at least.
Oh, I see.
In this case. So just a couple things, but for just attendance sake in the beginning, for using these spreadsheets, you always want to make sure you check off who you have. So there we go. That brings us well over quorum. We're going to hit accept on that. And then this tallies up our votes. Let's say we all voted yes and said today was Thursday and nobody said no. And there we go. And that puts in our numbers together. For the sake of anybody taking minutes tonight, I guess for right now, I was going to ask if anybody knew so far in other meetings you guys have had how those tallies are getting reported on the minutes, or are they just being put in at the end? Or
so the way I did it at legal is you can add extra tabs.
Okay.
There's extra tabs at the bottom, so then just kind of note like vote 1, vote 2. So it doesn't need to be noted in the minutes. These are documents that will be kept also as public documents, so they don't need to be noted in the minutes.
Okay. And for a reminder for anybody listening tonight on YouTube Live, we have the abstention column here too as well, but then keeping in mind that abstention votes basically count as no votes, just like seeing here. If Lauren, well, actually, they're not even counted as
not
votes,
a vote.
right? If I'm not
You're
a vote,
absent.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, let's say Lauren didn't say today was Thursday, and she'd be over here, but mathematically, with the way it works out, the yes percentages or the yes percent numbers would win. So just an example. So we will. Okay. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing this screen here for a second. Okay. So at 6:35, I'm going to go ahead and call our ad hoc meeting to order. I have a quick PowerPoint just to show everybody a brief snapshot of the agenda. So give me a second here. Let me pull that up. Is it doing that thing again? All right. Okay. Can everybody see this right on the big screen?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, since we are in a new, I guess we could say term, after our reorganizational meeting, we will need to tonight elect a vice chair. We have some minutes from earlier in the year in March that we need to approve. We'll do a quick review. We did a little bit just a minute ago of weighted voting. I'd be curious for any feedback from you guys from other meetings you've been at, seeing how things are going, anything we need to modify or look into. I'll very briefly recap one of the last things that we left off on, and then look at strategies for future work. And then right down at Roman numeral number 6, we'll get into going through our review and analysis based on our strategies that I'm going to list out in Roman number 5. I want to talk to you guys too tonight about scheduling meetings. Yeah, I know everybody has different subcommittees on their plate. So based on if people wanted to go one meeting at a time, or if we want to fill out a calendar docket, let's say every 3 weeks from now, whatever we decide, things like that. And then we'll go to adjournment. Now, the one thing right around Roman numeral 5, I did not on today's agenda put down new business. So recap your previous goals, strategies for future work. I'm going to get a little generous here with that Roman numeral. So if anyone needs to introduce new business, we'll try to work it into there as a strategy for future work. Typically, we haven't really had new business put on these agendas, but I didn't want to, leave it out in case if something came up that we didn't anticipate before. So, election of vice chair. Let me stop sharing my screen. Whoops, excuse me. And there it goes. Okay. Yeah, so I'll entertain nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Brett Beardmore.
I'll second that, I guess. Come on.
Okay. All right. So we have a motion to nominate Brett Beardmore as vice chair of our ad hoc subcommittee, and then I hear a second. Without any objection, I'll go to a roll call vote. Lauren?
Yes.
All right. Brett?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. With that, welcome Brett as our vice chair for this term.
Thanks, Brett.
So,
yep.
Now, in the past, what I have done on these virtual meetings is present to you guys the minutes kind of like right on your screen in full screen view. I didn't get a chance to do that for this presentation, but if anybody has, I can bring them up right off the email, or if you guys have links to it direct. Yeah. So on our consent agenda tonight for meeting minute approval, I have the minutes of March 21st and also March 29th. So I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes. And if anybody needs to remove one, we can go ahead and look into that right now as well.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Okay.
As is.
Second.
All right. So we have a motion made and seconded. So I'll go to a roll call vote with Lauren.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. And Brett?
Yes.
All right. And chair votes yes. So those minutes are now approved. Let me come back here to share my screen. All right. So moving along in through the agenda, just want to check one quick thing here. Yeah. So just to recap with weighted voting and our bylaws, we submitted them off to legal. The updated bylaw document is what we have on the portal online under school committee on the WRSC website. So those bylaws have been updated to reflect weighting voted changes. We have our voting spreadsheet in effect. And, I know Randy's using it. Any other changes that come along or things they find issues with, I know they're going to reach out to Barry to tweak if needed. But so far, I haven't heard major complaints. Maybe that's just because nobody's told me them. Doesn't mean they're not out there. And I wanted to get from you guys any feedback about anything you guys have seen or anything we need to look at on this subcommittee as far as the spreadsheets or weighted voting in general, any major issues that you guys have had so far?
I mean, as far as I've done with legal subcommittee, I think it's something we really don't need to be worrying about as heavily in subcommittees as we do in the regular full school committee. I think our votes, maybe when a vote is close, I think it's the only time that we'd really, have to be super concerned about it. But I think just from general minutes, the way we take them anyway, it would be easy to even fill out afterwards, kind of thing. So that's just my take on it.
All right, so no, it's good to know. So yeah, and with that, I know some subcommittees have gone through, changed some of the verbiage and some of their policies to reflect weighted voting. So as more come up with, I know they'll look at that as well. So that's good to know. So if everybody remembers correctly from one of our last meetings, and this is what we presented to the full table, and Dr. Riley, we're quoting you directly here again, to essentially for the work we're going to do, looking now at the review of the bylaws, to take an incremental and concurrent approach. So looking at the bylaws in pieces, and then also at the same time looking at whether there is a policy in our policy handbook that applies. So essentially we decided at that time, if no policy exists, then update the bylaw, especially to modern times. And if there is a policy that exists, then move to strike or eliminate that bylaw section since a policy is covering it. So I wanted to review too with you two. That was the map we had designed right after we went through the weighted voting and sent that through legal and got it through got it through the school committee. My kind of roadmap for our work, in addition to what this map shows us, is that we'll take it in pieces. That is looking at the bylaws, and then at subsequent full table meetings, when it comes to our section of the subcommittee, I guess announcements, updates, present what we have, maybe get some feedback, and then kind of take that and then go from there, and then go forward with language changes and or striking of items. So I'm going to take this moment to recap with you two, if that's kind of what you guys also envisioned, because I know it's been a while since we all met. So I wanted to make sure that that kind of sounds like what everybody had in mind. So give me 1 second here. But yeah, and since it's just the three of us here on subcommittee, you guys can go. We don't have to. I feel like we can. We don't have to raise hands, but I'm not against it, So, but yeah.
Yeah, that's generally what I figured. We when I reviewed the minutes from last time, and we had kind of a really lengthy discussion about policy first versus bylaws, and the full committee, when you did an update, seemed to be comfortable with going through that approach. And I think they appreciated that it will be brought to them in pieces so they can review it, have a good amount of time and good detail to review it. So I think it's a good way to go.
All right, no, that sounds good. Yeah, and yeah. So with that, just let me roll right back here to our agenda. So that brings us slowly into Roman numeral 6 for the actual bylaw review analysis. Now, with kind of what we discussed, the one thing, I think I had a conversation with Scott at one point. We, at the last meetings, established the framework and also how to present weighted voting to the full committee and then get it through legal and all that. We didn't exactly, and this is the part where I guess maybe tonight we can iron out. We didn't get that outline of, we're going to start with the things we talked about with the meeting agenda, or the things that have to do with how subcommittees, we didn't go into like a specific roadmap of if we want to take them out of order or start with literally Article 1. So I can present the bylaws too on the screen. If everybody has a link access to them, you guys can take a look. But one thing I thought we could iron out.
I feel like I have it like ingrained in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why.
And so
that
like
way-
I
Yeah.
would love to tackle the agenda example. I feel like that's an easy one with low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And I agree with Brett. I think we need to first tackle the things that most affect how our school committee runs on a daily basis and at our meetings. So absolutely, I think agenda. Another one I had, there's something about the agenda with our extension of meetings we have to vote every 30 minutes that I don't necessarily think. I would love to review that because I personally think it's a complete waste of time and it is unnecessary at this point.
Complete. Yeah, we can discuss that.
But yeah. But I totally agree. And I think we had at the wrap up of the last form of this committee had said that the agenda was something we really wanted to tackle. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm glad we're having that because that was, thank you, Laura, for mentioning that because it was hard to pinpoint the exact roadmap we had, but what you just said, so with weighted voting now and the amendments to the regional agreement, and now also a beginning reduction of the full committee size, like what pertinent things would be so immediate, especially with those in mind, and then we can go from there. Yeah, that sounds good. So the agenda, the I guess meeting structure, and and then so we can look at that. I'm gonna just pull up. You'd think by now we'd have like the bylaw structure organized. I'm just gonna quickly pull it up on my screen. Just want to see if I remember correctly. The organizational items come up at the beginning, and then it leads into like the meetings, special meetings, right? And then it goes into parliamentary authority. Okay, so I think we can. Well, okay, so for example, financial affairs. There are certain things by MGL that we know we have to keep in here, but I think those like focusing on like Article 2 about the organization, and then also the meetings, and actually going meetings first and then organizational. So okay, that kind of makes sense for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think
so,
since they're broken up by sections, if we choose a section to work on or whatever amount of sections we're working on, and then like in your update, you can inform the full school committee that this is what we're, planning on starting with, kind of thing.
Yeah, and explain like our former rationale, our current rationale even. Yeah. So that's good to know. So go with the agenda, the meeting structure. During our last
the agenda section 5,
yeah, during our last group of meetings, I know we covered like a lot of different things. This is that moment where we can definitely like shift all our focus to what's in scope, and then maybe what yes is still important, but we can shift off to like the out of scope area just temporarily until we work through some of these bigger items first. And because I know down the stretch when the committee gets a little bit smaller than we are right now, there's a lot of discussion we had about subcommittees and like the structure and that whole thing. So that's something we can look at too later on. But yeah, that sounds good for now. So with that kind of in mind, and being that we are virtual, I fully had plans to just also start tonight. Do you guys feel that we could just start looking at it right now, or do you feel like we should have all 4 of us back at the table? Or yeah,
I mean, we have to do it by who's here. We can't make we can't. We have to do the work. And
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
I got
go
cut
ahead.
off on what was the feedback on reducing the number of subcommittees? Wasn't that like a groan against the full committee? There was a lot of pushback, wasn't there?
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember. And
I think so. I think that's something we should tackle. But if we have to, put it as a lower priority, we can.
Well, it's also because part of it was that we don't list subcommittees in and all the bylaws says about subcommittees is that the chair chair puts in standing subcommittees, and you can vote to add another, do a full school committee vote to add another. So I think that was part of the issue at one point was that we were kind of overstepping what our actual charge as a subcommittee was when we were trying to state things that weren't actually ever in the bylaws.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That was
and
my
that's a really
impression.
good point too. No, yeah, that's kind of what I remember too. And now I don't want to misquote anything from the previous ones, but it's almost as if we can provide suggestions or some ideas, but then given that, like for our ad hoc, like changing language, striking out things that are already there, and then adding them to the bylaws, and then going through a legal route of making sure legal gives their blessing, and then giving everybody 14 days on school committee to get all the information. Yeah, that's something too. That's like a bigger table of discussion. I feel like, right, when we do present and see how. Yeah, I wonder what I know Scott's not here tonight, but that's something too. The chair, however they want to assemble, looking at that. I don't know if they need a separate ad hoc for that or discussion at the big table. But yeah, um, so with that, let me. I'm trying to think. All right, so let me. Is it easier if I share it on my screen and then we go from there?
What? Share what?
Oh, sorry. Share the bylaw document.
Yeah, you can. I was trying to pull it up. I couldn't find
Yeah,
it.
I have it, but it's
Yeah.
fine if you do.
Yeah. 1 second here. Okay. Are you guys just seeing like a screen of folder right now? Yeah, you're not seeing any bylaws, right? Let me see. Okay. Can everybody still hear me? All right, good. So yeah, if this kind of works, I'm just gonna try to make the screen here a little bit bigger. Try to see if we can. Okay. So looking at the agenda and looking at the meeting structure first. Let me scroll down to where was it? Down to Article 3. So in the section 1 right here, I remember we made the changes to reflect the weighted voting. And it's basically talks about each member's vote should be voted in proportion to the population of the member town compared to the population of all the member towns as defined in the regional agreement. So that was there. And then right down here kind of starts some of the intricacies of meetings. Regular special meetings, coming down to special meetings down here, emergency, and then I believe shortly after here comes up the agenda. So I didn't know if you guys want to just start right with the agenda and then go right to the specifics about the voting in the meetings, or one or the other, or just go right in order.
I mean, I'd personally like to start with the agenda, but
Yeah.
I can do whatever.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. It's right here. So we did talk a little bit, I think, about the agenda in previous meetings.
Agenda.
But yeah. Does that show up on the screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
There were so many different things we said. I think
Mhm.
even some of the uses of the words, the agenda will be. I don't know if there's
Example. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, I think so. Example was I think one of the big ones that I liked.
Yeah.
I wasn't at the meeting where you guys set up the example. I think that was one that I missed, but I never liked the idea of even having an example in there because I just think if we just bullet point the things that have to be in there,
Hmm.
I
Fair
think
too.
we get very I don't think it gives our chair, like our chair is the person who's supposed to be setting up and running our meetings in committee, and our chair is handcuffed by how this is right now because we technically don't have to have public hearing at every single meeting. This agenda leaves us no, room to have like working meetings that don't necessarily need to be set up as a standard
And we
meeting.
need working meetings.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of leeway that's taken away from us in getting our work done with this agenda. So I think even saying the agenda should contain, or like the majority of agendas will contain, I don't know if we lost Kamara. There he is.
Add a minimum.
Sorry about that, guys. Hang on. I don't know what happened there.
Add
Right,
a
I think there's some
minimum.
of the
These three things. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. We can hear you,
Yep.
Brett. We can't now if you're talking.
I'm here.
Yeah, we can hear you, Brett.
For long. Okay. All right. Hi. My gosh. It's really that. I think I'm there. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think what Lauren said was great. Just a minimum 3 bullets and no, I'm just emphasizing that I agree with Lauren. As a minimum.
Okay. No, that's good. Sorry. And then so
we said
actually,
we're going
Lauren,
to add the treasurer's report
yeah.
back in eventually, but we don't technically do that, right?
We always kind of just, it's always mentioned. But yeah, we don't necessarily review it within the meeting.
Okay.
Right. So Lauren, I missed this. I think it's exactly when I got kicked off. But what were the 3 bullet points you had?
I didn't necessarily
okay.
say 3 bullet points, but I just think like, I mean, I would say definitely the things that we should list are public hearing. The things that we should list should be in the agenda. Or whatever are public hearing.
I said at a minimum, these 3 points, whatever, and that's straight out of whatever the laws say. Robert's laws.
Yeah.
Right. So public hearing.
I don't know. I should pull it up, but I'm afraid I might get dumped on. I don't know what's in Robert's laws. It is Robert's, right?
Robert's rules, yeah.
Robert's rules.
Yeah.
Thank you. I just don't.
But basically, I think what Robert's rules says is that the chair creates the agenda and doesn't necessarily define the agenda.
That's awesome. Let's do that
because it's for all different bodies. Because Robert's rules is for all different kinds of bodies. So,
wow, drive a truck.
I would say superintendent's report because that's always super valuable. I mean, that's like the bulk of the information that we're getting from the administration.
Yep. I think you did say public hearing was yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfinished business. Cross that one out.
Yeah, that's one of those that we always.
It's non-value added.
Well, so here's my thing about that. I totally agree with you guys. So if you're a chair, if you're our chair of the school committee, and you have some unfinished business or drama you want to address with the group, just add it in your agenda, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so by
Exactly.
the fact, right? So if you don't even okay, to maintain some conformity, maybe there's like a general structure, like, don't put public hearing like the fourth item in the agenda when the first three were like big heavy ticket hitters, right? But if you had unfinished business, like I think as a chair, you would have the liberty without this rigidized Roman numeral section to say, we got to go over what we all had for lunch at the last meeting, and whatever the story is or whatever the topic is, and that way they could, as a chair, decide where to put that in the agenda lineup. Yeah, I don't know.
I feel
Yeah, I
like in
think you're
our
right.
I feel like in our more recent agendas, and maybe just even the one that was published today for our meeting on Monday, there's school committee business or committee business, I think, as sorry, dogs. As either a Roman numeral or within somewhere. I mean, I think that's an important thing. Our own business that needs to be done.
Yeah,
But
so that's good. That's good. Yeah, that makes so nixing the unfinished business, but then yeah, leaving in, wherever at the discretion of the chair. Yeah. Um,
You might want to make a note of that, Kamara, like in your
yeah,
notes, like because people will have the same question. So just be like, this is
yeah,
the reason why we're taking it out.
right. I'm actually taking notes on a thing here. I can set it
And
up as a working document I can share later.
the
Yeah.
chair, if the chair wants to add it in, they could.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, you always have the option to add back in.
Right.
I feel like for me, I feel
Yeah.
like the unfinished business gets wrapped up into the superintendent's report. I feel like that's kind of the way it should be.
Yeah.
Right. Now, secretary's report have always been, I know we elect Randy or we appoint Randy as our secretary. Anything she has to report on usually involves the approval of minutes. So I guess
I'd
that's
say we
really
listed
her
as
own.
a bullet. I'd say we listed as
Yeah,
a
right?
bullet
Yeah,
because these are all things we're just listing that
right.
could
But
be on
like
the
the
agenda.
secretary's report, you're saying always happens. It's something that just like always happens. So yeah, I guess it stays on.
Yeah.
It's one of the it
Um,
has to happen. Like it's one of
Yeah.
those things that has to happen. But this is why I like the way we're talking about doing this because then it doesn't have to happen at every single meeting. If
Mhm.
we have two meetings, like say around budget time, where
Mhm.
mhm,
the administration has a ton of information for us and discussion about all of these different things, then the chair doesn't even have to bother putting these things and then going in the meeting and say, okay, we're going to skip over this agenda item and we're going to skip over this. It's just they have the flexibility depending on the work that we actually need to do at the time to set up the agenda how they want to set it up.
Mhm.
mhm.
So are you
No,
still
that's
suggesting we get rid of all the bullets and get rid of, or do you
Hmm?
want to keep some bullets? Lauren, I'm just kind of confused. Do you want to get rid of all the bullets or do you want to keep some of the bullets? You do agree with keeping some?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I mean basically what I'm fine with listing most of these
mhm,
as however we want to word it. The agenda, should
Mm-hmm.
contain or can
right.
contain or
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying.
and then it's giving some I don't know the word I'm trying to think of responsibility or ownership to our chair and our
Mhm.
secretary of how they want to do that business instead of
Mhm.
so that's all I was thinking.
No, I think it's great. I guess let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Now, one idea. Just I know we touched briefly on it a second ago. Treasurer's report and financial statement. Um, and Dr. Riley, I want to chime in and ask you about this. I know Michelle's not here. Not that we invited her, but anyway, um, going forward with our treasurer and financial, statements, is it something that once we get treasurer reports, can they be rolled into your packet that you send out before a meeting?
I think that would be the plan. Yeah. And he's
Okay.
actually, I haven't seen it yet. I just heard this from Randy, and he actually has created a written report that will include in the superintendent's report tomorrow. And so really just kind of an update to the committee about what he's been up to and what he's been able to accomplish. And I don't know this last part because I haven't seen it myself, perhaps potentially next steps and timelines. I think, that's different. I haven't seen that before, but I think it's good. And I definitely will include it as an attachment in the superintendent's report. But to your question, Scott had mentioned this to me the other day when we were talking about the agenda. You can expect regular financial updates like we had in the past. I think he needs to get in the position to do that. I don't know if he'll have those for this meeting, but moving forward, would I expect them to be available when we send out the superintendent's report? Absolutely. Yeah, we need to get back to that.
Okay. So that's good to know. And then want to ask you guys, which student representatives report? I don't know if we ever landed on anywhere on that before in previous discussions.
It's nice to have.
It is. Nothing against the pros version of it at all, but I know it's a good opportunity for students.
It really
especially,
is.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm fine with it. If we're just listing
Yeah.
things.
Right. Yeah. And then the other item, let's see here. Okay. So let's take Roman numeral 8 here about committee reports.
Mhm.
Yeah, see, okay, right now as it stands, we are the only ad hoc. So I know this. Yeah. Oh yeah, actually Auto Advisory Board I think is ad hoc too, right? Or well,
No, it's not ad hoc. We have to have it legally.
yeah, legally, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So with subcommittee report outs, this is the one I rack my head around because then it also goes into Simcoe report outs,
Mhm.
Building committees.
That's for when we were like building Mount View. If we're
Okay.
Oh,
Right.
if you're building
Okay.
a physical
Oh.
building or have a big project, capital project like that, that would be.
we might have
Right.
something this year that fits that description.
Oh. So this is where I guess too. I guess it's just another bullet point. I mean, part of what I am kind of wondering too is if you're a chair designing your agenda, like which order would you put all these things in? I don't know, but there
I
could
feel
be
like they are
a
just
reason.
lumped in the same thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if we really need the building committees if we're tossing one of those. I would, because our approach is going to be that the standing facility takes on the work. We wouldn't quite need. I mean, do you see a need for
No, that's
building
no.
committees?
A building committee is made of people from the town. It's a separate. There are people from the school committee on it usually, but a building committee is a kind of. I think, Jim, I don't know if you know, but I think it's like a legal. I think it's MGL. There's a
law.
around when public buildings are being built, there is a committee formed of all different stakeholders.
So,
Yeah.
but do we have policies that drive the building committees?
Well, the town. We don't build the buildings; the towns do, unless we were doing something to the high school or the ECC.
ECC, right?
But if it was just the towns, then why is it in the bylaws?
Because we would have representation on there, and we would have people reporting back to us about what was going on with it. Like I personally would want to know if they were building a school. Like if Paxton was building a new school, I would want to have a report.
No, I'm saying we're literally going to be doing this. I am just trying to understand. So the other question was, there's no policies around the building committees, you said. It doesn't have a series of policies.
I don't know specifically in our current policies.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd have to. I'm trying to think. Yeah, we have to take a look. I who in the district, guys? Do you know off the top of your head who was the last school to get built? Was it Mount View?
Mount View.
Okay, yeah. So I wonder if we have to look that up, see if there was a specific policy that was written sometime around that time or not, or if they just whatever formulaic things they're doing were just designed as part of the plans involving building Mount View. So then, I know at some point we discussed the two separate public hearings. Yeah, once again, we just have that as a bullet point. I mean, at the discretion of the chair, I think too, do you need to have two public hearings or one or, and then
Or,
new
or
business.
none. We can have
Or
none.
none. Right.
If
Yeah.
it's a really heavy meeting where we're having like a working meeting, we don't necessarily have to have public hearing.
Right.
Not saying that it's not important, but it's just something that we kind of tie our hands to doing it twice every meeting when we don't necessarily have to.
Yeah. And we should still leave new business on here. Probably right.
Do we really need to?
See, I went back and forth in my head about this, but go ahead, Lauren. Yeah.
Well, no, Brett was.
Yeah.
This is one that I was debating too. There is more stuff in the bylaws about new business, so I think it'll come up and we'll end up discussing it again. But yeah, I'm new business. But again, if we're just doing this bullet point list of things that the chair could put on the agenda,
Yeah, might as well
chair's
start.
choice.
Mm-hmm. Right, it's the chair's choice, right?
This is something we could, but I'll definitely have opinions when we discuss, members getting new business on the agenda. But I think for leaving it as a bullet point for something for now that the chair put on the agenda, I think it's fine.
Yeah, no, it's good to know. So let's see. I think that, okay, correct me, guys, if I'm wrong. So I think in Robert's rules and basically every meeting I've been to, when somebody calls the meeting to order, I know they list the time and it's an official demarcation of the meeting, right? But look at item number 2 here about the chair's opening remarks. I always thought the call to order and the chair's opening remarks were one and the same. So I guess we can put that down too. If the chair has anything they want to say ahead of time, right? Before the meeting starts, or excuse me, in whatever order they want to discuss something. Just say chair's remarks. Now I'm going to take opening out of there because if they decide to go, on their agenda and be Roman numeral 5, then they haven't really met the rule of being an opening, because this is now saying if you're the chair of the committee and you have something to say, you don't need to say it right at the top of the meeting. Just call the meeting to order, get down to business, and then say what you want to say later on at your discretion, or wherever it is you wanted to list it on the agenda. So I don't know if that. Just say chair's remarks is what I'm going to put down as a suggested bullet point. And so I'm trying to think if there's anything here that okay, Simcoe report outs, right? Somebody did ask me at one point, is there a different way the committee would feel like they want to hear report outs, or should it be an agenda item that the chair puts on, or is it going to vary chair by chair? So when we say the bullet point about committees, should school council reports, you guys just comfortable leaving it as a bullet point?
So here's where. So via MGL, we are technically supposed to be doing more with school improvement plans than we currently do as a committee. And I think because we are such a large district, this is historically how it's been handled, is that as opposed to us viewing and approving every school improvement plan, this is, we have a school committee member representative on each school improvement council, so that then that's kind of the way we do that, if you will, as a large committee with 13 schools. I'm not sure. That has always just been my assumption of why we do school committee, school council reports like that. I don't think via MGL there needs to be a school committee member on school councils. We just, as a committee, do that because of the way we're set up. I don't know if Jim has any thoughts or
I think
opinions.
that's correct, Lauren. And my previous districts, they didn't necessarily include school committee representation, but I think to your point, they were forwarded formally to the school committee at some point during the school year. So I think it's just the system that the district has in place to make sure that representation is or that connection is had. You know, I think for the most part, I don't know. It sounds like people feel like it's a nice opportunity to be connected to the work that's happening in the schools. So I'm certainly not speaking against the practice, especially if the committee finds it helpful.
Okay.
So what feedback did you
Yeah.
get, Kumara? I'm interested in what feedback you got about how people wanted to, if there was anything different
Well,
people were interested in.
So somebody, I forget who this was at one point, but someone mentioned the idea that if you sit on a Simco and you wanted to tell the public about what was going on, to bundle your statement into the superintendent's report, and then that way the information got across. But then the difference would be that if a member of the public wanted to know, they'd have to read it in the report, versus if they were watching and live streaming it, they could find out immediately that, say, the Thomas Prince Middle School was having they're having a fundraiser or something. Like you see that. So you have pros and cons to both. I think the problem is when you put in a report out and then it gets put in with a very big packet, it doesn't come out. Yeah, it's lost. It doesn't present out in the same way. Like, somebody would need to know that in Princeton they were doing a fundraiser on the town green. I'm just using that example. I don't know if that's what they use it for, but yeah. So I think the intention behind that logic is it would help reduce the length of meetings. But then I realized the length of meetings don't always. So as the agendas sit right now, right? So school council reports always seem like right now, not always seem like, but they are at the end of the meetings usually. But they're not the reason that the meeting went long. Because in order to say that you need to reduce the meetings in time, you could then put in a report out. They're not the cause of a meeting going long, in my opinion.
Are people saying our meetings are too long?
You are joking, right, Brett?
I don't know. Maybe during COVID and the mask stuff, but no, there's so much to do.
Yeah,
I know.
I mean, for real, like.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to what Kumar was saying, I think it's also a different interpretation of how school councils are considered. For instance, I don't personally report out about fundraisers and activities going on at the school usually. I report out on the, like, any major updates that are given about, like, educationally or like testing wise, and then things that they're doing to remediate that, and then budget discussion, and maybe talking about the goals, because really just my assumption is that we attend them because of those school improvement plans, because of the MGL. So I wouldn't necessarily have the same report. I mean, if that's something we wanted to look at and talk to the chair is doing something different, but that's not necessarily how I view our interaction, like how I personally view our interaction with the school councils.
And I'll be honest, mine's even different too. I feel that I'm the conduit between the committee and the school, and I'm kind of a messenger relay. That's
Yeah.
my big takeaway, is a
Yeah.
voice for the schools.
Right.
I think
I don't, you're right. We're clearly not consistently doing it from member to member. And yeah, it's not as value add. But I don't know if we can tackle that here
Yeah.
or later
Right.
in the bylaws.
Yeah.
That's it.
Uh,
Thank you. Go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say, I agree, Brett. I mean, I like it. I like it when you have the opportunity for reports. I think it sends a valuable message to the public that the school committee is connected to the actual works in individual schools. I think it's also an opportunity to highlight maybe some of the issues or approaches that the individual schools are taking that may not otherwise find their way. I mean, we've talked, and certainly the goal in the coming year maybe have more report outs from individual schools. But I personally, I like it when people do that. And it's not always, look, we know these meetings sometimes get canceled and sometimes it's not super heavy lifting the discussions to take place. But I think it's important personally. I think it sends a strong message and it also gets some information out that's not through the administration, it's through the school committee. And I think that has value, having that other lens or that other thing happening. I'm not volunteering for this right now, but I'm thinking about some of the things you were mentioning, Kumar, about the members' concerns about events or things like that. We definitely can work. And I know there's been some preliminary discussion with Barry about, having an event calendar, working on our ability to make people aware of things that are happening live in our schools. So that's something we can definitely tackle. And if we want to add it or have it, say as an attachment in the superintendent's report, we could do something around that. I think there are ways we could do that. But personally, just from the district perspective, I like the depth or the communication that's happening in those reports a lot of times, because I think it's real. It's like, as a committee member,
I find that so hard.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. No, so that's good. Yeah, definitely. So okay, so taking away from the agenda then, eliminating the Roman numerals and then going to temporarily, well, not temporarily, but as an alternate, the bullet point system, to have the chair say that an example of the agenda, well, our bylaws say that an example agenda should be at a minimum created by the chair, including these items. Just we can sure up the final language at the, but going away from the Roman numeral system to that. And then I had one question. If down the stretch in the future it is X number of brand new uh, school committee members, everyone's brand new, everyone walks in with no experience. I'm just hypothetically thinking if that ever did happen, uh, in the bylaws, should there be something we should put as, here's an example agenda? Is that necessary, you guys think, in a bylaw? No, right? Yeah. Okay.
They have
I see the answer there.
thousands and thousands of pages of public documents of all of our former agendas that Randy has
Yeah.
access to. So I don't think we need to put an example.
Yeah. So no, that's good. So with that, do you guys have any other items here on what to do, or in the section of the agenda? I'm just going to scroll down. Oh, okay. Adjournment.
Yes, please.
Comes up. Okay. Yep. Let's leave that in there. Yep.
The only other thing I was going to mention was that I have it pulled up on my screen, is there is a MASC does have an agenda format sample policy, and it doesn't actually list anything as we are doing.
Oh, interesting.
But it's. Do you want me to read it? I have it pulled up.
Yeah, and actually, do you want me to stop sharing my screen? Is that easier? Or?
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I can just read it out loud. It's
Yeah.
the superintendent conferring with the chair will arrange the order of items on meeting agendas so that the committee can accomplish its business as expeditiously as possible. The particular order may vary from meeting to meeting in keeping with the business at hand. The committee will follow the order of business established by the agenda, except as it votes to rearrange the order for the convenience of visitors, individuals, or to expedite business. Any school committee member, staff member, or citizen may suggest items of business. The inclusion of such items, however, will be at the discretion of the chair of the committee. A staff member who wishes to have a topic. I mean, there's all, it goes on and on, but it's just interesting. I wonder if we could pull with our little bulleted list, if we could pull some of this language for our bylaws, basically saying that the superintendent and the chair arrange the order of items on meeting agendas. I just like how some of the wording is that they have.
No, it's good to know. Dr. Riley, real quick, I want to ask, do you have any major objections to that kind of approach? Or is that something you guys already do right now? And you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. No, I think the things that you've been talking about, I would want to empower the chair to do. And I think sometimes what's hard with those defined agenda items in the order is that some of the most pertinent or important issues you don't get to until later in the meeting. And I think it can cloud the earlier business. And so I would love for the chair to have that flexibility, just because I do feel like, for the very reason, like, I think that's a well-written statement, and it clearly kind of, states the reasons why you would want to be able to do that. I wonder, and I would even ask this about the bullet points. I think the bullet, I guess what I was trying to figure, and it's kind of like when you were going back, Kumar, and talking about the need for a sample agenda. What's the hope, and what are people hoping to accomplish? And I guess what I'm trying to say is, do we feel like the historical precedent is sufficient for people to understand what should happen in the meetings and be present? Or is there concern that if there's too much power, not power, but authority given to scheduling these meetings, and certain items aren't clearly enumerated, that the focus of meetings could go awry? I guess that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. You know what I mean? Because I loved what you just wrote for MASC, just because I think it just says, hey, you elect the chair, you trust the chair, and you get business done. And if you don't like what the chair is doing, then next time you have an opportunity, you don't vote him in again, or her in, But I get that, and there's a trust thing there, right? Because a lot of things that you were talking about, I get the point. I mean, I think there should be an opportunity for student voice and agency to talk about things. I think there should be an opportunity for the chair to set the stage, or to, at one point, to comment on the business of the committee. I would hope every meeting the district is prepared to make a statement about the business of what's happening in the schools, and it's an expectation that we make something in terms of a report to the committee in terms of what's happening in the district. So I think those are all important things. Everything actually that you talked about are important things. I guess that would be my question. And I don't know if that'd be too much for the committee, though, to just make that statement and not have any kind of expectations or framework. And so I get that too. I just, I don't know. I'm in the positive mood. You know what I mean? Like, I always feel like maybe better things come out of when we don't legislate practice.
Yes.
And there's an opportunity for freedom and originality and creativity that may not otherwise be as available to us, and to think that way, because we're kind of into mandated structures. But I also understand that's a risk, and there's some, I understand. I guess I understand both sides. So I probably shouldn't have said anything. I was just.
No, I actually really appreciate, because you're the one who sits with the chair and creates the agenda. So we don't have, insight into how that process goes.
Yeah, and for both of them, I'll be honest with you, I was laughing when you were talking about Randy, because that's where it starts, right? Randy looks historically at the time frame, and what are we supposed to be doing right now to make sure we don't forget anything, right? And so that's where it starts. And then I can honestly say it's not, both with Sherry and with Scott as chair, it's not a question of what you put on. It's a question of where you fit it in. And so it's almost like you take the items, and it's not that the items change. It's more about, okay, where does this fit under the agenda? And that's kind of the thing. And I don't know, Scott and Sherry would be better sources, but that's what I find is the frustrating part, is then you're not necessarily talking about things when you would want to talk about them. They have to go in certain places during the meeting because that's where they quote unquote fit. You know what I'm saying? And so that's where, when you talk about giving the chair flexibility, that's what that appeals, and I think that might help with meetings and, get the important or most pressing issues at the forefront. And there's not this anticipation of what's, when it's going to happen. The other things that happens in meetings, we definitely are trying to develop our district reporting and fit things in about, when we're going to talk about district data, what's a good time for us to have a nurse report and things like that. And that stuff, that's usually just conversations. A lot of times it is a function of time. Usually we've got a couple in the hopper where we just say, hey, I've got this, and, this can be ready anytime you want in the next 2 or 3 meetings. This is when, John's going to talk about SEL or things of that nature. So that's how we've been approaching it, at least with Sherry and Scott. But I feel like for both of them, some of those requirements and when you have to fit things in it created a structure that I think could have been more fluid and perhaps more effective.
No, thank you. That's really, really helpful insight to have on that.
I think Kumar froze.
Yeah.
Oh, did we lose Brett?
I dialed in.
Oh, you called in.
I
Okay.
dialed in. I gave up. I
Okay.
gave up. I'm here, and I heard everything Jim said.
I mean, I think that's interesting, the concept of like not even putting the bulleted point things in. And we do have the historical perspective of all of our past agendas that maybe we don't even need all those bullet points. Maybe we just do have a statement that I was just saying, Kumar, that, it is an interesting thought to maybe we don't even need all of those bullet points, because maybe that, maybe there would be a chair that would feel they would have to address every single one of those things, no matter how we worded it, but really it's the discretion of the chair. And as a body, we also I hate this phrase, but it's true. Like, the chair is the servant of the body. Like, if we don't like what the chair is doing, we as a body have ownership in fixing that problem in the future, whether by voting them out later or even at a next meeting, so I think it is interesting, just kind of maybe not even putting bullet points, but I don't know how other people feel about that.
Yeah, I thought that's how we were kind of starting this discussion, but we just went through that list and we felt like half of them, 2/3, had a bit of merit. So I was like, leave them in and just put in the flexible language.
Mm-hmm.
So like have a paragraph that just outlines, basically summarizes what Jim just said, and maybe you on, or what you've been saying this whole time. And then list, that's why I was saying, like, list the 3 or 4 bullets that we deem absolutely essential. Because I think there's merit to that.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find that balance. So maybe that's my proposal, is a paragraph of wording, and then like the 3 or 4 minimums that we just went through the list and said, we need these.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the shell of the meeting.
Yeah.
And then the chair can build it out as needed. Any direction, up, down, horizontal, vertical.
Yeah, like basically we could just add in part of that statement, we could add which should include, like, or could include, or could include and list
Sure.
some of those things.
Sure.
No, that's good. Actually, Brett, I'm so sorry. So are you the 410? Are you
Yeah.
dialing in by phone? Okay. I was
Yeah.
actually just going to address. I saw it pop on, and I didn't realize you just read out the screen at the same time. Because I didn't know
Yep,
somebody else had
I
joined the
got the
meeting. So
role
yeah.
on more number.
No worries. Perfect. So all right, that's good.
Yep. You're muted, Kumara.
Yeah. Sorry. So let me come back to sharing the screen here. Just 1 second. Okay. Can everybody still see that? Okay. All right. So yeah, and now it right underneath the adjournment section, they then go into talking about see now yeah, members of the public who want to go during the first public hearing required to sign in, and um, so this is a section about public hearing. The chair, I mean, the school committee shall encourage the submission of written testimony. The chair will have discretion to limit the time of each speaker, and then it goes on uh, talking about public hearing and how long it's going to be limited to. Um, so the question would then be, actually, I want to hear you guys' thoughts because I have a couple of things about this which have to do with, does this even, in the sake of talking about what you want to have in your agenda, it, does this kind of just seem a little bit like policy dictation? I don't know. So yeah.
I mean, I think we don't have to. Sorry, we don't have to have the language about the first and the second public hearing because if we're leaving it at the discretion of the chair, the. I mean, I think this is fine, but like leaving most of this, taking out some of it, I think it's okay, but like just saying, like cutting that sentence down to public hearing may be limited to 20 minutes. And leaving the chair will have discretion to limit the time of each speaker. But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing too about, it's funny, what I thought was interesting when I read this is that they don't explicitly state and list how do you get into the second public hearing. The first sentence, it just talks about members who want to speak during the first one have to sign in. But then if you were somebody, I guess that part's vague and unclear. It might be even be a moot point. Um, and then the part about the school committee encouraging submission of written testimony, that's where I was kind of like, well, if you have a section that says public hearing, you as a chair, do you just, in the past, I'm trying to think what we've done, but we've just had people who write a letter or an email and then it just gets entered into public record during the section called public hearing. Is that what you guys kind of remember?
No. We only did, I believe emails were only added into public address at one point during, or a couple of points during COVID when we had that one special meeting where it was like basically a 2.5 hour public address. I think that was one time that we allowed emails to be read into the record, but typically we don't. I think what the school committee shall encourage the submission of written testimony is so that for the minutes Randy can submit. Like back in my old advocate days, like I would write a speech and then I would send it to Rebecca, the old secretary, so she could just publish that. And like a lot of times when the union president will speak, they will have a written statement. I think that's kind of what that's saying.
Okay. So maybe we may as well, we could just leave that section, I mean, that sentence about the submission of written testimony in. Yeah. And, all right. So then that's kind of now the question I have too is anything on this section that you guys think we should have that we haven't yet included?
That's very dangerous.
Right. I,
No, I
you know,
cannot think of anything.
And
yeah.
forgive
Yeah.
me, I wasn't tracking it as closely. Is there anything that you took out?
I think unfinished business.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. German.
One of the public hearings.
well, but we
I
just
don't know.
put public hearing as a bullet point. Like if we are going to put
Right.
bullet points.
So maybe unfinished business, and I mean, you wouldn't list public hearing twice, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, because I think the other thing is the new business is important, just because I think that does give agency to individual committee members who feel like, there's something that they want to have the ability to address, and it's almost a check and balance on the chair and the agenda that they are setting. So, no, I personally, I don't have anything else, and I think it's good. I mean, to me, the number one thing would be to give the chair flexibility in terms of when things happen.
Mhm. No. Yeah. No. That
Yeah,
sounds
let's
good.
not overcomplicate it.
No. So now, what? So just to interrupt here for a minute. As far as is this something now? Do you guys want to take back to the full table with giving them, to say that here's what we've been working on so far about, what we're gonna say that an example of an agenda should include these things, and then the bullet point system that we listed. See, I think that'd be my next question. Do we take this feedback, or do we take these suggestions to the full table, or do you guys think we should present um, a mock-up and then take their feedback? I don't know if anybody has
Come
any
on.
ideas on what the right way to approach this is. What were you saying,
Yeah, let
Brett?
me throw it out there. I think we should look to see what the next upcoming agenda availability is to even get in and propose something. Like maybe,
Yeah.
maybe we let that drive the kind of the decision. Because I'm not opposed to presenting 2 or 3 sections at a time to the full committee.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think we should do exactly what we did with the bylaws, right? I think we had Jim kind of put it in the superintendent's report. This is kind of what we're planning. And then we made the motion and everyone kind of agreed and seconded it. So I kind of think we should take along that same strategy with each, I don't know, couple subsections. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Actually, yeah. Go ahead. There.
yeah, I think a similar thing. Like I think on Monday you could in your, because this is going to be our agenda on Monday,
Right.
I think
Yeah.
give the update that we started again and we reviewed the agenda section and we'll be presenting some changes to that. And kind of state the ideas of what we're doing. And then if we end up working on any other sections tonight, and then at our next meeting, we can kind of shore that up of what we actually want to present.
Mhm.
And then we have to do the 14 days
Yep.
to amend bylaws for every section. So that's where it becomes like, it all seems like it's going to take a long time. But yeah, I think doing a few sections at a time is like say maybe in our August meeting, we could do a presentation if we were able to have another meeting.
Yeah.
Our
September.
subcommittee between.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. And actually, I'm glad you guys mentioned that because it made me realize I think there's a lot on the slate for Monday's agenda from I think Scott mentioned that a while back too. So, with that being said, airtime we'd have to report out on updates is just about all we're gonna have. Does that sounds good? All right, yeah. Um, so with this section then, all right. So actually now going into the, right now we are at 7:46, and I want to ask you guys, um, I don't think tonight's meeting has a time frame on it, but if I know
8:30.
typically, what's that?
8:30, right?
Yeah.
It said
Oh yeah,
8:30.
8:30. Yeah. So that still gives us about 45 minutes. So I don't know if you guys want to, if you guys have any ideas for the next section we want to tackle, because now it goes into Parliament authority. Earlier we said, just want to make sure I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, just trying to think, because we did cover. Did we say too about meeting structures, like meeting special meetings, regular and special meetings? Like, is that section you guys want to go to next, or?
I mean, do we want to just go through whichever section this is?
Yeah,
Like
and
that
then
the agenda
continue.
is? Like go
Yeah,
through that section completely and then
yeah. Because so now, sorry, I don't mean to make everybody's head dizzy, with as I'm still sharing the screen. So right now we are in Article 3, right? At the end of Article 3 is where the agenda items were. So now, if we go back to the beginning of Article 3, does that kind of make sense? Because then that brings us basically to the section called meetings.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and then so this first section right here about proportional voting, this was one of the sections that we went over earlier. It cleared through legal, and then that brings us to regular and special meetings. And if it's easier, I can just give everybody a quick second. We can read this section right here, and then do you guys feel like you need me to read it aloud, or you want to read to yourselves? Yeah. So when everybody's done, and actually, Brad, I don't know if you can do it. Go ahead and raise your hand, or just chime in and say done.
I just want to make sure I'm at the right spot. So you're talking about section 7 meetings.
So it's actually section. So hold on, Article 3 meetings. So just to make sure, what page is this? It's on page. My pages aren't listed. Article 3. There we go. Article 3, Section 2, regular and special meetings.
Article 3, section 2. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Just that one section 2? Just section 2?
Yeah, and you guys can read ahead, but just for what I have on the screen to what it lets me show fully, if I go into section 3, it'll cut off part of section 2. So that's why, yeah.
I'm done.
Okay, I'm done.
Alrighty. So I know the first thing talks about school committee shall schedule a minimum of 1 meeting per month. Anything you guys want to? It looks good to. If it looks good to both of you guys.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Then the next one is school committee calendar shall be adapted by the committee. Something we already do now. Regular meetings may be rescheduled by majority vote.
I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
All right. So then they go into the proportional majority. So a little bit about jargon about how, if you're in a subcommittee or in a committee, the quorum idea, executive sessions and how to enter them, the idea of town meetings taking priority over our school committee meetings, and then right there at the end. I know, I think each of us, or not, I don't want to speak for everybody, but the meeting shall not extend beyond 10 o'clock unless 2/3 of the committee present vote to extend the meeting for 30 minutes, and then subsequent 30-minute sections of the meeting voted by 2/3 of the committee present. So was that something you guys felt like you wanted to edit? Or I know, Lauren, you mentioned some things about it earlier.
I personally would want to strike both of those last two paragraphs.
Yeah. So
That's just my personal opinion. Because I only
So-
think, go ahead, Brett.
But then again, is there a policy that talks about anything about length of the meeting or how it's set?
No, I don't think we personally have any policies about length of our meeting. I can check though.
Yeah, if we strike it, we've got to make sure that something, we need something that guides the length of the meetings. And I don't care if we say the chair can decide the length of the meeting. He can keep us overnight if he wants, she or she wants. But I think we need something that.
I mean, I don't know, because I really think the only time that this becomes extremely necessary is when we have really controversial issues going on, and like maybe the budget, so that, discussion goes on. And in those cases, if the chair now has the flexibility to create the agenda how they want, they could just have, like, the chair and the superintendent could decide to have a meeting about a single agenda item. And that thing could start at 7 p.m. and easily end even before 10 p.m. I just think those votes, the ones that I've been involved in, and more especially the ones that I have seen occur, break the flow of work.
Yeah.
And are at times weaponized by people who don't want to continue discussion points. So then they vote no continuation, and the discussion is done and possibly never brought back again.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's just something to tell the full committee, Kamara, is don't freak out. It just means that it defaults to the chair, the length of the meeting, but common sense tells you they're going to be 3 hours typically. So maybe we need something like that. I don't know.
No, that's good. Yeah. So go ahead, Dr. Riley.
No, I was just going to say, I hear what Lauren's saying is I think at times the subsequent votes in particular feel weaponized, or that they're trying to make statements about the issue or curtail discussion. One thing, and I'm just putting this out there, is I wonder about, is part of that to limiting the amount of time that the meeting can be extended, is that part, was that originally built in part in terms of ensuring transparency of the business that gets conducted in public? You know what I mean? I don't know. And I don't know. I was just throwing that out. But I totally hear what Lauren's saying in terms of, if that was the intent, I'm not sure that's how it's being used.
Yeah, but I can tell you, like, if I wanted to get up and walk out of this meeting, I can, and it ends it, so I still have that power. It's just not described in the bylaws, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. So here's something too, and I always wondered about it. As it stood right now, if you wanted to extend to 30 minutes, I can definitely, on the other side of this coin, also show multiple examples where like, oh gosh, boy, we got some things to get done under the gun here, so let's get it all done, And so it always amazed me that you needed a 2/3 majority to do any extension beyond, if I'm reading this correctly, beyond 10. I thought maybe just a simple majority would be good, but I guess I don't know what the logic and discussions that previous groups in the school committee, well before all of us here, had to decide that you would need a 2/3 to go beyond 10. So that was just one thing, but
it's a big deal, I think.
And if we were going to keep, if we we were to
Right.
keep something like this, I think revoting every 30 minutes is, if you're going to vote to extend the meeting beyond 10, just vote to extend it beyond 10,
Yeah.
100%.
as opposed to every 30 minutes. But I
100%.
kind of still stand on the side of striking it completely, but that's just my.
I say try it, see what the full committee says,
Yeah.
and then maybe
So
the compromise is what Lauren just said as a backup.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm fine with. I am fine with striking it. It's a little weird, but I'm fine with striking it.
yeah. So yeah, we can put, we're gonna bring up both. I mean, I'd be curious if anybody there at the full table has any full logic or has any arguments for or against what their thoughts on it were. So yeah.
Well, and just
Um,
keep that in mind, though, Kumar. We're going to get tons of feedback. People are going to, and we're going to have to
right.
make a majority decision and go with it.
Yeah.
And
No, that's
is
true.
that something we can do, like when Kumara gives his update? Maybe we would have to clear this with Scott, but could we say that people could send their feedback to Scott or Kumara?
I personally, I'm not against that. Now I'll ask you guys this. So, okay, I guess there's different ways to handle the feedback, right? But to start with real quickly, at that report out meeting to give an update, um, if it oftentimes can have the ability to turn into a full lengthy discussion, not to take airtime away from the rest of the subcommittees, but I think in order for people to feel like they have a voice, they can definitely do one of those things. I mean, I know if you ask Member Otmar, he'll say, let's set up a Google form. I'm not trying to put him on the spot, but I know a proper channeling way to give your feedback. So yeah, it's up to, I'm not against you, taking in the feedback. Now, I'll tell you guys this. If we do that, I can find, we did this before with giving feedback. At our next subcommittee meeting, I can briefly summarize the bullet point feedback items that were given. We don't have to go into full length, we don't have to spend a lot of time on that, but that's an option, definitely.
I would, I totally derailed the discussion on the ending the meeting time, but if we did, I would personally want to denote that it is only from current sitting school committee members that we would be taking feedback.
Okay. Yeah.
Bylaws.
What? Only current?
That if we were discussing our bylaws as our committee currently, maybe I'm wrong, but I would like the feedback that I would want to look at as a member is from the members of our current committee. And if they want to speak to people and give us feedback from their constituents, then that's fine. But I don't want to be receiving feedback from Jane Doe 1, 2, and 3 and have no understanding of who that person is or what their, so I think just feedback, I just think if members want to get feedback from their constituents, they can, but I don't necessarily, maybe I'm limiting too much, but that was
I feel like that's assumed, but that could just be me. But I appreciate the clarification.
It wasn't the last time we got feedback.
Okay.
Yeah. Guys, give me just one brief second here. I just got to take care of something really quick. I'm just gonna stop sharing my screen for a second. All right. I'll be right back. So sorry.
Lauren and Brett, can I ask you a question? So when Kumar is talking about getting feedback or what you're planning on doing with these, so say if you present these at the next meeting, right? Say if you feel like you're ready to present recommendations from the ad hoc committee at a meeting, and you go through and say, these are suggestions for the agenda, or, these are our suggestions in terms of regular and special meetings. And say, for example, if it's to remove the requirement that they need to vote to an extended meeting. Do you feel like those would be made and then there'd be discussion amongst the general committee? Or are we talking about, presenting those to people in advance and soliciting input and then talking about them again? I guess, one thing I'm thinking about is the more, and it's tricky, right? It's because, like, why do we have the ad hoc bylaws if we're going to have the entire committee weigh in on some of these decisions? Although I think you can collapse or better define what the true issues are. But it would be interesting I would want to hear, if I was a committee member, what people said openly in the committee meeting about something like extending meetings, and have that be almost like a live discussion in some ways, because it might limit some of your concerns, Lauren, that there are other things driving the discussion. Talk about, well, I worry about, so because some people may say, well, I worry about the effectiveness of a meeting beyond 10 o'clock. Or maybe they do worry about the transparency for the public, and that most people won't feel like they have an opportunity to hear the discussion live and be informed. I don't know. But I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing that out. I don't know what the answer is.
It's hard. It is very hard, Jim. So, like, I feel like last year we got a big uproar for making sure we got the full committee's buy-in. That's what I remember, is there was a lot of concern to make sure we get the full committee's buy-in. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. But I think it is an important part of the process.
But
we have to collate the feedback and be like, here's the general consensus, here's where we think is our recommendation, and now you have to vote on it, the final decision.
But you vote on it, but devil's advocate, you vote on it after discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be presented to them 14 days before we're voting on any of these amendments. Mm-hmm. And I do like Jim's point of, we are the people that volunteered to do this work. If somebody had such a concern that they had so many ideas of what should be done, then they could have volunteered to be on this subcommittee.
Hmm.
I guess that's
I did, and I wasn't picked.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah. I think it's fine. I think, and that's what I was saying. So I think it's fine. And yeah, let's not solicit so much feedback, and let's try to crank through it. Well, so what do you say, Lauren? We should make the proposal, put it 14 days out there, and then let the discussion and voting happen?
I mean, basically, what I was saying about feedback was just about this next meeting that we have on Monday. I think it's Monday. When Kumara does his report about our ad hoc subcommittee, he could state kind of briefly what we have said, and then say, if you have any feedback, email it to me. Yeah. I mean, I wasn't like looking for necessarily something but just giving we are taking feedback. You can email the chair of the subcommittee.
Okay.
That's kind of all I was like, more, okay. Giving a brief description.
CYB.
Yeah, and Brett, I think you are right. I think I heard the feedback, and I think you all did too, that people felt like they wanted to be involved in the process. I think what I was trying to put out there is there a way, and I'm sorry because I think I muddied the waters myself, is there a way to find that balance where the work is being driven ahead and people still feel like they have agency to provide their input as appropriate? Because I think what I get worried about, because we, okay, now we're looking at August 14th, and like, I would want people to be in the position on this subcommittee to feel like they get through the content they want to get through in a timely manner, and aren't bogged down by process. But I do feel like it needs to be a balance, because I think you're absolutely right. People in general, look, a lot of the stuff we're talking about tonight, to me, boils down to trust, and feeling like their viewpoints or the important work of the committee will be represented. And so it's delicate. I don't have a good answer. I kind of broke my own rule. Don't bring something up unless you have a solution. I don't.
No. I
was wondering, because I think this is important. I think there's some really good things that would be discussed, and I think it'd be great if there was a way to get through all of them this year.
Yeah.
But I know how things work at times, and if there are too many steps, I'm wondering if that's going to be possible.
Fair enough.
Right. No.
So yeah, I like what you said, Lauren. I do.
No, that's a good point. No, but thank you, Lauren. Yeah, actually, for myself, I was taking those notes as well. Okay, like what I do in my role, especially on Monday's report out too. So no, I agree, guys. And actually, so in this section here, that about brings up now it brings us into section 3. So are you guys ready to move on?
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so section 3 starts out with special meetings. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to quickly read that, but we can take a look here.
I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. I read it a second ago.
Yeah, same here.
So, but what? I'm sorry. Can we go back? Are we striking the last 2 paragraphs out? Town meetings take precedence, and the meeting shall not, like Lauren suggested. What was the final alignment?
I mean, that's up to, you know where I stand. I'm
I know,
striking
but
them.
tomorrow, what did you write down? What's the?
So what
Where
I
you
was
going
actually, when I present that on Monday, I was going to say, this idea of, actually I was going to present it just as that it could be, removed out of the bylaws. And then I was kind of, part of me was, I'm curious to see what people would think about getting rid of, if you didn't set an end point on a meeting. How do people, it's just starting really general, leaving out the details, right? If you didn't put an end point on the meeting, how do you feel about that in general? Does that alleviate some stress for you? Do you feel okay with that? I'm just curious
I think we should propose, let me say it differently. I think we should propose to the full committee that we're taking these 2 out.
Yeah.
And if they have feedback on that,
Share it with us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that essentially will answer my question. Yeah.
I think we leave it at that. I think that's just Jim's saying, is that we're the subcommittee. We've got the voice. This is our proposal. And then we'll have to develop some fluff around. Yes, it falls to the chair. Yes, then it'll give flexibility.
Yep. Yeah. So.
And I still don't know if we need a policy around time length or not. That part I'm a little stuck on, but maybe we don't. And just like Jim said, don't bring it up if it's not a problem. So I just wanted to wrap that discussion up a bit. That's all. Now we can move forward.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so yeah, now with the special meetings then, I know the chairs always have the ability to call a special meeting. I always wondered about the.
What is it saying?
What's that?
It doesn't make sense to me.
To me, it's a check and balance, and it's been used before. It's a check and balance on the chair. If there is an issue that 1/3 of the membership feels absolutely needs to be discussed in a public forum, then 1/3 of the membership can come together and sign something and have a special meeting called. I think it's one of those checks and balances that when we were worried about making the agenda so, giving the chair so much ownership of the agenda, this is actually one of those ways of taking care of that.
So you're saying stay and stay as is.
I would personally say keep it as is, because
Yeah.
I know historically it's been used before.
The motion to be reconsidered must also be identified in the request for the special. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
So that's just Robert's rules. Like, if you're going to vote to reconsider a motion, you have to have voted on the winning side of that motion. That's just basic. That's like part of Robert's rules. So that's just basically stating Robert's rules.
And it makes sense when you think about it, right? Because you could have a 2/3 majority who, they're all don't feel like it needs to be reconsidered. And the 1/3 that didn't vote that way could be calling another meeting, even though, they effectively failed.
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's in Robert's rules, do we need it in the bylaw?
Well, I think the part that we really need in the bylaws is that 1/3 of our membership can make a request to call a special meeting. I think in the event it's being called to reconsider a motion is just like explanation of if
like an example,
if
right?
that's why you're doing it, here's what needs to be happening.
Yeah. And not to go down the weeds of Robert's rules, but typically any motions that get made and voted on, whether in the affirmative or the negative, typically you don't see the same motion for a topic come up more than once without having it be somehow getting reintroduced, kind of, I guess, from what little I've seen in meetings. But I see why they put this section in there. Most of the times when I see special meetings called, I feel like it's related to deadlines that we have to meet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Contract.
But
Yeah. Budget.
yeah. Right. So if you're trying to reverse, okay, if you were in the minority, and you were trying to reverse something that got voted on, and the purpose of you calling this special meeting is to do that, then your intention might be to try to reverse the course of action. So I guess that's probably why they put it in there.
Which you can do that anytime.
Actually, right?
That can
Yeah,
be
you don't
done
need.
via Robert's rules anytime. So
Yeah.
I can sort of see what Brett's saying. Like, we could just take out that from in the event the special meeting is being called to reconsider. We could just strike that. Right. We can strike that part just for efficiency and making a more, readable document.
Do it.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. So,
Because like from this discussion, we were having this whole discussion based on these sentences that are very little, that are there. I don't think I've ever seen a special meeting called to reconsider a motion. It's always been about something new.
Exactly.
It's
not very.
I mean, and to Lauren's point, like, so if there was any intention to reconsider motion, just save yourself the legwork and just wait till the next meeting and then find a way to, or I don't know, but I don't think it's tricky there.
Sure,
Right.
I mean, sure.
Or if
Why
you're
can't
gonna-
it be unfinished business?
Or
Yeah.
if you're going to do it, know what you're supposed to be doing. Like,
Right.
if you're going to request
Yeah.
a special meeting to reconsider a motion, then know how to reconsider a motion. We don't need to give you you don't need to get it right from the bylaws how to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Make a more pliable, easy document. It's,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that brings, so you guys go with section 3. So I had that, starting with the, right here, in the event of the special meeting, everything from that point on, nixing out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So then now comes to section 4. You guys can read that really quick.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah.
Yeah.
That's just MGL.
MGL, right? Brett, any issue with that one, or?
I don't think so. I think that can stay in.
Yep.
I think it can stay in. It's pretty specific and to the point.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Vote.
Right. Now, Section 5, we actually have looked at before. It's already been voted on and approved, but it talks about our weighted voting, roll call by the spreadsheet and the secretary to calculate the total proportional vote. So I feel like we can go right beyond that one, and then that brings us to agenda. Okay, so it brings us right back to agenda. So actually, if I'm not mistaken here, I'm just going to scroll back up. Article 3. I think that, based on what we talked about here so far, yeah, that covers, because then it goes into I believe Article 4, into parliamentary authority. So yeah, you guys, any other feedback on anything else here in this section, or?
I mean, not this section necessarily, but what I would make sure that you make clear during your update is that these are not our final recommendations. We will be presenting those at a hopefully, possibly the next full meeting after you've had your 14 days to review the changes. Just so you make that clear, so people don't freak out thinking that we're going to be voting on it without them having other, time to consider it.
Opportunity to discuss.
Right. So to kind of reiterate here, so we have this entire Article 3 section that we worked on. And at Monday's section where I report out, what we've done, I basically can, in a very succinct form, outline these items, right? Going section by section, hitting the major bullet points, and then we're going to ask the committee if they have any comments or feedback, they can email me. And then that kind of brings us right into, actually right now it's around 8:17. So it does kind of bring us into, if we're keeping our 8:30 time, brings us into our next meeting, about when you guys want to meet. And then at that meeting, we can take the feedback we got, finalize the changes. If any need legal blessings, we could get their legal blessings and then give the 14 days to submit to the full committee. And then in the middle there, also vote on it as a subcommittee. We'll make motions, official motions. Is that kind of the process you guys see too?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of like what I had in mind too. But I didn't want to say we have to cut the meeting or anything, but do you guys want to tackle another section, or I know it's at 8:18 right now, or do you guys want to spend some time going over like what days work well for next meetings and things
I mean,
going
I think
forward?
the fact that we got that whole article done is pretty impressive, and we should just keep it there. And that's a good,
Yeah.
easy thing for people on the full committee to know. Article 3 is what we discussed
Yeah.
and what we'll be
Cool.
presenting.
Yeah. No, I was kind of leaning that way too. And Brett, I don't know if that worked for you or.
Yeah, it's great.
All right, perfect. So give me 1 second here, guys. So we can do this one of two ways. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen here. So my question was, I know today is Thursday. I set the time for 6:30. Does that work? We can reach out to Linda too to double check. But going forward, any nights of the week that, based on other subcommittees you guys have and other obligations, any nights of the week that are not good for meetings, or
I can only tell you through August. I don't.
okay,
My whole life blows up once hockey starts for my
School
kids.
starts.
So,
Yeah. All right. Yeah, and
yeah, so it's fine through August for me.
Yeah. And so Brett, I mean, same thing with you. Like, is it helpful to you to have all the meetings set up ahead of time, or just go meeting by meeting where we schedule the next meeting after that?
I don't have a preference either way.
Okay. Yeah.
My schedule's pretty well set.
Yeah. And to start with, I guess we can work on that. We'll just go pick our next meeting, to schedule a next meeting. Now I'm just looking at the calendar here. Just trying to bring up the calendar. Let's see. Are anybody out of town the week of the 23rd?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
Well, I'm away the Monday. I'll be back the Tuesday through Friday.
Okay. So right now, as it stands, excuse me. The reason I picked the 23rd is I know the week prior there's a couple meetings already on the 17th and the 20th. So I thought, and then right now, as it stands on the public posting, there's a gap in subcommittee meetings until Monday, August 14th for a full table meeting. So I was gonna reach out to Randy for a day during the week of the 23rd, and then
I can do the 18th or 19th. I can.
yeah,
You might not want to. The week of the 23rd just needs to be virtual for me, but I can be in person on the 18th or 19th to 17th.
18th and 19th. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure. As far as I can tell right now, whoops. Okay, we can. Yeah, Lauren, do either of those dates work for you, or
Which one? Which one?
July 18th or 19th?
Like 2 weeks out.
I could do the 18th probably. The 19th might be tough.
All right, yeah.
We
No,
can
I can do the
23rd. It just needs to be virtual.
right, yeah. And actually, if everybody can do the 18th, we can convene on the 18th and then see after there where to go with the next meeting.
Because that would give us plenty of time too for the 14 days. Like if we really wanted to present something at the August meeting
would.
for all of section 3, that would be pretty awesome.
Because right now the August meeting is on the 14th. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good plan. All right, yeah. So I'll email Randy to get that on the books, and then to set up now on the actually. So Lauren, on that day, are you able to do in person?
Let me look. Possibly, I could.
Yeah. Worst case scenario, we could set up a hybrid. We'll make sure we have enough to.
Yeah.
And same goes for Linda too. If she can't do in person but can do virtual, then we'll make sure that's there too. Dr. Riley, just while we have you here, as far as your calendar shows, do you have anything scheduled for that day or?
I am good on the 18th. I would be like Brett. I could join you virtually the week of the 22nd.
Okay.
And so I'm on vacation, but I'm gonna do anything virtual that we have. So I'm good with either. I really am.
Okay. All right.
18th sounds like it to me.
Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, perfect. So I'll go to roll call vote. Lauren.
Yep.
All right, Brett.
Yep.
All right, and chair votes yes. So all right, no, thank you guys. I think we got a lot done tonight.
It was great.
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Thanks all.
Yeah, thank you. Nice talking.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
Night.
Bye.
All of
Bye.
you too. Bye.